Welcome to Transport Vlog. My name is Paul and behind me is the Tramway Avenue stop. So this is part 2 of my Parramatta Light Rail update series. In this video I'm going to cover the wire-free section from Tramway Avenue to the Prince Alfred Square stop.
I finished part 1 by showing you the Tramway Avenue stop platforms, complete with the green track. I then revealed where the overhead wire poles end and then covered the rest of the first green track section. So if you haven't seen this video, then do watch this first. It's now appearing on the top right. All the footage is from late August 2022 unless mentioned otherwise. The first green track section ends at this interchange with George Street and Alfred Street and is the first set of traffic lights that trams will encounter. One of the major changes since my last update has been the installation of new traffic lights with the T signals for trams, so you'll see quite a few of these in this video. Here is this junction on the map. On curves, the lines are further apart. This is probably to provide sufficient clearance from overhang. The line on the right has this strip, which might be some kind of check rail. Now looking in the other direction towards Tramway Avenue. I'm now going to cover the section that runs along George Street to the junction with Purchase Street and Nolla Parade. The purple colour is for wire-free street running sections. Now on George Street and on street running sections, the trams will have their own dedicated lanes, usually in the middle, with separate lanes on either side being designated for road vehicles. Lines in the road on either side clearly indicate the direction of travel, and the track bed has these slightly raised edges to prevent other vehicles from using or crossing the tram tracks. This Google Street View image shows how this part of George Street looked in 2018. It seems that parking and grass verges were removed to make space for light rail. The lane on the left now verges away from the tram tracks to join Purchase Street, whilst the lane on the right continues alongside. Now getting closer to the intersection with Purchase Street and Nolla Parade. Assuming that the traffic lights are green, trams can travel at 55 km an hour along this section. Now at this intersection, and you can see more green track ahead, but before we go there, it's map time. So as you saw, the left lane verges off to join Purchase Street. And from the Purchase Street and Nolla Parade intersection, George Street becomes one-way eastbound. The second green track section starts immediately after this junction and continues along George Street before turning left into Harris Street. This is at the start of this green track section. The term green track refers to the use of grass along the track bed and also vegetation on either side, and that's exactly what we have here. The vegetation planters on each side also provide a physical barrier for pedestrians and road vehicles. As the Parramatta River is only a few metres north of the track, a flood marker has been added here. You can also see a pedestrian footpath on the left, and on the right 2 lanes for George Street, which continues to be one way west to east. Looking in the other direction, the Parramatta River is on the left through these trees. You can see glimpses of water here. And shortly after the flood marker, there are some further tram traffic lights. This is to allow vehicles from George Street to turn right across the tram tracks, and then turn around, wave at the tram driver and return to George Street. Oh, and also to provide access to this property. Hopefully there will be vehicle sensors at this intersection that will trigger a traffic light change, so that trams always have a green light whenever this junction is clear. This is how this part of George Street looked in 2018. Again, it seems that the removal of parking was all that was required to create the additional space for tram tracks. Now continuing along this green track section, and the grass is an Australian species called Nara zoysia. It was chosen after a 12-month trial in Rose Hill. I discovered this purple box, which is part of the irrigation system for the grass, and it uses reclaimed and recycled water. The green track blends in very well with Robin Thomas Reserve, which you can now see on the left, and also the grass banks of the Parramatta River on the other side. The Nara zoysia grass is very hardy, drought tolerant, and most importantly it grows very slowly, so it won't need cutting very often. Now approaching the left turn into Harris Street. Notice the 15 km an hour speed limit and warning sign for the pedestrian crossing, which you can now see here. This is looking the other way, with George Street and the Parramatta River now on the left and Robin Thomas Reserve on the right. Now continuing to the left and over the pedestrian crossing. Harris Street has 2 lanes for road vehicles, and these are to the right of the tram tracks. There is 1 lane for each direction. Green track reduces noise, air temperature, increases biodiversity and blends in well with surrounding grass areas such as Robin Thomas Reserve, which continues around this corner on the left. This warning sign for motorists is for a light rail crossing over Harris Street. This is how Harris Street looked in 2018. Parramatta Light Rail will be operated and maintained by Great River City Light Rail, a consortium between Transdev and CAF Rail Australia. They will also look after the green track. Now here is my simplified 7-step process for creating green track. Step 1. Do the necessary earthworks, including adding suitable drainage channels. Step 2. Lay the rails above the track bed with some horizontal supports. Step 3. Put the rebar mesh in place for the concrete pour. Step 4. Pour in the concrete, allow it to set, and you'll have the concrete holding the rails in place and space between the tracks for soil. Step 5. Add in some separators and drainage openings. Step 6. Add the irrigation system and connect it to the reclaimed water supply using purple hoses. Then add the soil on top so that no one knows what's hiding beneath it. Step 7. Add the grass turf and job done. Now back on Harris Street and approaching the end of this green track section, and we have some more tram traffic signals, which are for this intersection where the tram tracks cross Harris Street to join Macquarie Street, and this is where the next stop is.
This is the stop that was formerly known as Harris Street. It's now got a new name, which is Robin Thomas, and I rather like the new name because my surname is Thomas, but we're not related.
As you know from earlier, the Robin Thomas Reserve is close by, so this seems like a good name for this stop. The platforms are complete and waiting for the canopies. With jacaranda trees immediately above, this stop will have a pleasant purple backdrop in the spring. At the eastern end there is an RTS sign which stands for Request to Stop, and this speed limit sign for the curve into Harris Street. There is also an RTS sign at the western end, and I think this is because there are further traffic signals ahead. This stop has a filtered water refill station and it's working. Nice. Besides the tram tracks, Macquarie Street also has a single lane for road vehicles, and this is on the right. It's one way west to east, and at this end traffic can only turn left into Harris Street. With the Robin Thomas stop now behind me, let's explore the Macquarie Street section. Just here, this small ramp is replaced with a double yellow line. This is probably to make it easier for larger vehicles to turn left into this road from Argus Lane. And here we have another flood level warning sign. And then traffic lights for this pedestrian crossing, and further traffic lights for cars entering this building on the left. This was how it looked in 2018. Again, it seems that the removal of parking spaces was all that was required to create space for the tracks. A few metres further on is another pedestrian crossing, and then a tram only end sign, which might explain these double white lines in the road. I mean, they wouldn't be for trams. So it seems that road vehicles can share the left lane as far as these traffic signals. This is the intersection with Charles Street, and the lack of red tram only markings in the road does seem to confirm that this section is shared with other road users, but only to this junction. Here is a view of Charles Street. Most of the traffic using the single lane on Macquarie Street will come from this road. After the Charles Street intersection, the red tram only markings return, with other road vehicles using the lane on the right, which continues to be one way from west to east. The building on the right is the Arthur Phillip High School. There is a slight ascent on Macquarie Street, and this building on the left that was built in 1923 is part of the Parramatta Public School, so this is very much School Street. Notice the new street lights on the left. And this crossing here is for school entrances, probably Parramatta Public School on the left and Arthur Phillip High School on the right. Back in 2018 there was this building on the south side, and Macquarie Street had 4 lanes including 2 for parking, and back then it was one way in the opposite direction to now. Now continuing over this crossing, and Parramatta CBD is getting closer. Notice that the rail flange is currently filled with asphalt. This is obviously a temporary measure, and I guess it protects the rail flange until trams start using it. This is looking along Macquarie Street in the other direction, back towards the school crossing. Now at the major intersection with Smith Street, and lots of new traffic lights have gone in here. Back in February, these new traffic lights, complete with a myriad of cables, were on Smith Street waiting to be installed. Here is another view of this intersection with the new traffic lights in place. Close to this intersection there will be a substation. This could be above or below ground. If it's above ground it will probably look something like this. So we're now here on the map, and this short section before the Parramatta Square Stop will be shared with other traffic. Let's take a look. So the double white lines are back, along with the left arrow into the Parramatta Square car park. So as you can see, vehicles accessing the Parramatta Square car park will use this short section of Macquarie Street to access Smith Street or continue east along Macquarie Street.
So I'm now in the Parramatta CBD area, and behind me is the Parramatta Square Stop.
This stop also marks the start of a short tram only section, but this one is different as there are no additional lanes for other vehicles, so I've marked it in orange on this map, and on the main map too. Notice how the edge and back of this platform is slightly higher at the moment. After the canopies have been installed, the platform's surface will be added and it will then be all level. This stop does not have the sloping platform ends that are common at other stops. Step-free access is still possible via the pedestrian path behind each platform. Now looking east towards Smith Street, there is another tram-only end sign next to this traffic light, along with both an RTS and SL sign. If you know what SL stands for, do share this in the comments below. At the other end of this stop is this sign, and that's because there is a double crossover just west of this stop. This will allow trams to terminate at Parramatta Square from either direction by using this crossover to switch tracks. Now looking east, with the Parramatta Square Stop now coming into view. Many buildings on the north side of Macquarie Street have been demolished to make way for the new Parramatta Metro station, but Hewson's Cottage, also known as the Kia Ora building, is staying. Bicycle hoops and a filtered water refill station have recently been installed at this stop. Shortly after the crossover is this lane on the right for road vehicles. It is currently being used to access the construction site for the new 5 and 7 Parramatta Square building. And again, there are white lines to direct vehicles coming out of this site to go via the tram tracks and then turn right into Horwood Place. Horwood Place is in the middle of the Parramatta Metro station construction site. On the right used to be a large multi-storey car park, and on the left used to be the Greenway Plaza shopping centre. To see these buildings, click on a video appearing on the top right now. Between Horwood Place and Church Street there is one lane for road vehicles running west to east. This is to allow traffic from the western part of Macquarie Street to access Horwood Place. Here is this lane, and now the tram tracks to the left of it. In the CBD area, the tram tracks have these decorative tiles along the track bed, which I think are quite a nice touch. On the approach to the curve into Church Street, there is a 20 km/h speed limit sign and another SL sign below it. Perhaps SL simply means slow. And now more red tram only markings to make it clear that other vehicles should use the lane on the right. This pedestrian crossing is controlled by traffic lights with filter lights for trams. And this is the curve into Church Street. The white markers are for Macquarie Street traffic that crosses the tram tracks. Now on Church Street, and the decorative tiles return. This is also the second section that is trams only, with no separate lanes for other traffic. So this is marked in orange on the map. However, there are some double white lines, and I reckon these will be for construction vehicles to enter the Parramatta Metro station construction site, which is over on the right. This is where a further part of the Greenway Plaza and a few other shops used to be, and in the future there will be an entrance to the metro station right here on Church Street. Now continuing towards the George Street intersection. And this means some more traffic lights with tram filters. I'm now going to take a short detour to show you what is and isn't on George Street. 45 George Street is still there, as its heritage listed, but Crunch Fitness and Paramore have now gone to make way for the Parramatta Metro station, resulting in a nice view of the Roxy Theatre.
Now close to the Church Street stop. Now this used to be known as the Eat Street stop, so this one's had a change of name as well, and it has canopies.
This is the Church Street stop looking north, and it's the first stop on the street running section to get canopies. This is the canopy for the northbound platform. This area in the middle will house cables and equipment, and is also where the ticket machine will be. The canopies at this stop are 23 metres long and weigh 6 tonnes. The edge and back of the platforms are still slightly higher, so it seems that the final platform surface will be added once the canopy work has been completed. This is now looking south. The canopies were built by a company in Silverwater, with 80% of the materials being sourced locally. They were craned into place and assembled overnight. The additional supports on either side will be used for signage, as you can see in this artist impression image. This is how this stop looked in February this year, with temporary synthetic grass covering the platforms. Here is one final look at the canopy on the southbound platform. Shortly after the Church Street stop, the tracks cross Phillip Street, and these tram traffic light signals were the first to be installed back in 2021. This part of Church Street is predominantly restaurants, so is often known as Eat Street. As this section is trams only, it will be interesting to see if bicycles will be able to use it as well. And this was one of the first parts to be completed, with all the tracks and tiling finished in 2021. And I'll be reserving this table for prime tram views when the line opens. Now just beyond the restaurants and approaching the Lennox Bridge. This is the view in the other direction, looking towards the restaurants with the Phillip Street junction in the distance. Now on the Lennox Bridge, which is where the Parramatta Light Rail crosses the Parramatta River for the second time. And on the bridge are more of these black strips or grooves, this time on both tracks running inside each running line. Wow, I didn't realise the Lennox Bridge was that old. Here is the Parramatta River looking east. And this construction site over on the right is for the new Powerhouse Museum. I believe that this will now be an addition to the existing Powerhouse Museum close to the goods line in Ultimo. Here is another view of the new Powerhouse Museum site from the Wild Avenue Bridge. Now back at the end of the Lennox Bridge with the Riverside Theatre on the left. And a little further along is where the tram-only section ends, and there are more traffic signals too. And these are to control vehicle access to the Novotel Hotel, and for traffic from Market Street that is turning left into Church Street. The Novotel is on the right, and their exit has a traffic signal to prevent cars exiting at the same time as a tram passes. And it seems that cars from the Novotel must turn left into Market Street. Cars can also access the hotel directly from Market Street by going over the tram tracks. So we're now here on the map and back to sharing streets with other vehicles, hence the purple colour. In this case, a single lane runs along Church Street on the east side of the tram tracks, between the junction with Market Street and Victoria Road. It's one way south to north and allows vehicles to access Palmer Street and Victoria Road. Traffic from Market Street crosses the tram tracks to access this lane on the right, which is here. Road vehicles can then turn right into Palmer Street or continue alongside the Prince Alfred Square Stop to turn right into Victoria Road. Before I cover this stop, here's a recap of how the Market Street intersection looked back in February 2022. This was from the end of the Lennox Bridge looking north. You can see the tiling work that was taking place. Now looking from Market Street towards the intersection, which was closed for resurfacing work and to install the new traffic lights. The tram tracks are here. Now looking south with Market Street over on the right, it looked very different back then, with major work taking place to complete the track laying. So quite an amazing achievement to finish this in just 6 months. Just after the Market Street intersection is the first pole and cantilever arm for the next overhead wire section. The one on the other side is a pole only at the moment, and then closer to the Prince Alfred Square Stop, which is behind me, is a long cantilever arm to cover both tracks. Here is another view of this from the other direction. Now approaching the Prince Alfred Square Stop, and you can see a single pole and 2 cantilever arms between the platforms. At this stop, trams will switch from using their onboard batteries to taking power from overhead wires, which will also recharge the batteries at the same time. As you can see, this stop looks similar to many others, with the platforms in place and waiting for the canopies. This is the northbound platform with the holes, pipes and cables for the canopy supports. And this is looking south with Victoria Road behind me. Prince Alfred Square is over on the right.
So I'm going to finish this Parramatta update video here at the Prince Alfred Square Stop. So in part 3 I'll continue through North Parramatta to the terminating stop in Westmead. So if you enjoyed this video, do give it a like, give it a thumbs up, do leave a comment or question below, subscribe if you haven't done so already, and do click the notification bell, that way you won't miss out on part 3. So thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I'll see you in part 3 soon. Bye for now.